KRDO's coverage of the Pikes Peak Ascent and Marathon is brought to you by Total Petroleum, Evian Water, Cellular One, Huberger Saab, Gosen Moving and Storage, and the Garden of the Gods Trading Post.
It's called America's Ultimate Challenge. Each year, over 2,500 runners flock to Manitou Springs to challenge themselves against the mountain known as Pikes Peak. This year, runners from 46 different states and 8 foreign countries have come. They all start here and make their way towards the clouds. 13 miles, 8,000 feet in elevation, and about a 40-degree temperature drop later, the runners reach this point, the summit of Pikes Peak, 14,110 feet. Now this is the finish line for Saturday's Ascent race, but it's merely a turning point, the halfway point in Sunday's marathon. You have to ask yourself, why runners see fit to make this trek? Here's a look at the course as you face the mountain. Runners start in Manitou Springs, follow Manitou Avenue up to Ruxton, and then head on up past the Cog Railway, where the pavement section of the course ends, and they meet up with Barr Trail. Arkansas native Fred Barr built this route to the top of the peak, and for the past 37 years, runners have used it as a personal challenge. What makes it so challenging is the continuous uphill grade, ascending from 6,500 feet to 14,000 in 12 miles. Now, although the average grade is 11.3%, there are portions of the trail where the grade is much more severe. Interestingly enough, there are even some downhill sections on the way up. Consequently, the runners will then face some uphill portions on the way down the mountain in the marathon. Triple Crown Administrator Nancy Hobbs explains why athletes from all around come to test themselves against the peak.
Well, this year we have close to all 50 states represented and about 10 foreign countries. I think there's a mystique about the mountain, and I think part of that is looking up at the mountain and then actually going up and climbing is exciting for so many people. And everybody goes up for a different reason and for personal goals.
Much less a race of getting anywhere than just a race of survival, you know, getting to the top.
I normally run about 30 miles a week. That's not very much, but for a guy 60 years old, that's pretty good.
We're practicing a form of insanity here, but we're going to do it.
Well, this has probably got to be the most ultimate challenge. I've done a half an Ironman triathlon, but this one here is, I think, going to be the toughest one. You know, living in Dallas at 102, I run every day at lunch, 8 to 10 miles, but this is definitely, you know, 2.5, 3 hours of work up a hill, so up a mountain.
So the runners get ready for this assault on the mountain, arriving early to stretch and prepare both mentally and physically for the Pikes Peak Ascent on Saturday morning. Due to the popularity, the event is broken up into 2 starts, one wave at 7 a.m., the other at 7:30. This decreases the congestion on Barr Trail, which is much narrower than any paved city street. This year, perennial favorite Scott Elliott of Boulder, Colorado, had some company heading up Manitou Avenue. In fact, it was his former CU running mate Chuck Trujillo of Denver. Now, Trujillo would push himself on the 1 mile of pavement, taking the early lead, which would be very taxing on him later in the race. Many people who haven't run this race before make the mistake of going out too hard early and paying for it later. As you can see, Trujillo pushed so hard that he actually had a lead on the veteran Elliott by what appears to be a large margin as he comes through the switchbacks. Now, while runners certainly need preparation, race officials also have to make sure the mountain is ready. R. Mark Austin explains.
Besides putting in a lot of practice and having the right mindset, the key to successfully running the Pikes Peak Marathon or Ascent may be keeping the body filled with fluid.
I think hydration is more important than actually even food, because you can be pretty well, you can have eaten well, but if you're not well hydrated, you're not going to make it up that mountain.
You do have to have water in this course. I carry a bottle with me at all times, try and stay hydrated. A few years ago I had ran into a problem with that, and Nancy was up at the top. She put me in her car right away and took me down because of the bad condition I was in. I didn't stay hydrated well enough. But, yeah, it's definite need to have water there.
So once again, Fort Carson lent the use of a Chinook helicopter to get over 1,600 gallons of water.
What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars.
And carrying it down the mountain on the backs of individuals. And several years we used llamas, and in years past we've also extended about 1,200 feet of hose or more hose down the mountain to get to these various water points that we have on the mountain.
Not only is it good training for the pilots of the helicopters, but it's great for the community as well. You know, anytime we can help.
Back to the race, finish line officials await the first Ascent runner. Five-time champion Scott Elliott, who had taken over the lead from Chuck Trujillo just beyond the halfway point at Bar Camp, looks to add a 6th title to his running portfolio. He would do so, but not in record time. The 29-year-old suffered from stomach cramps, which would hamper his progress up the mountain. After he finished, he sat down to tell me about his effort.
Is it safe to call you the king of this mountain? You won 6 times in the last 7 years?
I'm too modest to be called the king, but I'm just glad to have a good streak on.
You got a good streak. You won 3 times, then Matt beat you. You won 3 in a row. Does that mean you have to come back to get 4 in a row next year?
I'm going to plan on it. I'd really like to.
How many times does a person have to run this mountain before they're satisfied?
For me, I'm going to run the rest of my life. I'm going to try to break age group records all the way up. Yeah.
What is it about this mountain, Scott, that makes you want to run it each and every year?
Just the stature of the mountain. It's so huge and it's so imposing. You see it from hundreds of miles away when you drive in from the east. You can see it from Denver. When you're down in Manitou Springs or Colorado Springs, it just dominates the landscape. And I mean, when you're down at the starting line and you look up at the top and you see that and you say 2 hours, 2 hours plus, no way, but it's just a really nice accomplishment. It's something to say that you've done every single year.
Were you upset with your time today? Obviously, I mean, it seemed like decent weather, maybe record weather.
Well, maybe record weather. I am a bit upset, but I only started training in June. Before that, I was barely running. I was out of shape, fat, and I really had to cram to get in shape for it. I didn't know if I'd be in shape, but things worked out. So I'm glad to have won. 2:13 is a reasonable time for the fitness shape that I'm in right now.
Take me through today's race. Did you lead pretty much the whole way?
No, I didn't. Chuck Trujillo, who has been a teammate of mine at the University of Colorado, is an extremely good runner, and he took over, and I was satisfied to let him take over. This is his first race, and typically, if you haven't been on the mountain, for somebody to go out hard, that's usually their undoing. So I kept him in sight. I kept him within 30 seconds or so, all the way up until Bar Camp. I could see him at a switchback or so ahead. Just after Bar Camp, about a mile after Bar Camp, I caught up to him and passed him, and from that point on, I was on my own. I mean, I've got the trail memorized, so I mean, it's home sweet home from that point on.
What do you do as far as thinking? I mean, you're there, you're all alone pretty much on this mountain. How do you just concentrate on taking as many steps or what?
Well, I bring my watch with me, and I reset it this year at Bar Camp. So I check my splits of 3 miles to go, 2 miles to go, and 1 mile to go. And I mean, that's a good confidence builder right there to know that I'm right around my fastest training run. And also, once you're above tree line, you can check over your shoulder and look way far back. And if there's nobody there, I mean, if I don't feel good, and today I didn't because of those cramps, if there's nobody chasing me, there's no reason for me to really push hard and possibly injure myself. So,
what was it that made you be hurt today?
Right, just a few minutes into the start, I had nasty cramps under both of my ribs, and I was happy just to keep Chuck in sight. I really couldn't have gone any harder.
And I have had cramps before during other races in other years. In fact, the year I ran my fastest time, I had cramps, but they went away. This year they didn't. I had them most of the way up, and with about a mile or a half mile to go, the cramps got so bad I actually had to stop and walk and try to massage them and work them out. At that point, I knew that I had the race won. There wasn't anybody even within sight.
Second place Ascent finisher Dale Peterson of Denver finished well behind Elliott. He credits the good finish in his 9th Ascent to harder training.
Well, before this time I did more training at altitude. I went up to Pikes Peak, which is a 14,000-foot peak, and ran it 3 times, and then I ran Mount Whitney with a friend of mine who did I did it with a full backpack about 3 weeks ago, and did Whitney to 14,000 feet. My friend did the Badwater race from Death Valley to the summit of Whitney, and I carried all his gear, so I think that was the best training. And running Mount Whitney with him with a full backpack with all this stuff really got me a little tougher.
Okay. Tell me about today's race. Starting from the start, was it good weather conditions? Obviously, it was overcast.
Really nice, not as windy as last year. A little too hot for me. I'd prefer more overcast and colder.
Did you have to work your way through some people on your way up the mountain?
Yes, I did. I was in about the first few miles, I guess I was in about 10th place. And then halfway, they said I was like 5th. And then I didn't catch the guy in 2nd until the last couple miles, until right at the last, near the finish here.
Did you feel good the whole way up?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did.
You sound surprised.
Yeah. I didn't expect to feel so good the whole race. I kept thinking I was going to die, and I always felt good. So I'm real pleased.
Third place finisher Chuck Trujillo was not as strong as the first 2 finishers, but still, he didn't finish bad for his first attempt at the Pikes Peak Ascent. On the ladies' side of things, ever hear of J'ne Day-Lucore? We have. She won the uphill trek for the 4th time in 5 years. Her time this year was well off her own course record of 2:37.35 set in 1989, but still good enough for the win. It would be nearly 10 minutes before we would see the second place finisher, Elise Rainbow Star from Colorado Springs. Year after year, people continue to vie for a slot in this race, but when asked why they feel the need to run it, most have a very hard time coming up with a response.
I don't know. Insanity, maybe? Oh, I ran it last year and I had a blast doing it, so had to do it again.
Tell me, take me through the course. Tell me what it's like.
Oh, at the beginning it's not so bad. Once you get up to the switchbacks, that's where it starts getting real steep, and my calves felt like they were going to explode at that point. And then after you get past the switchbacks, which is probably about 3 miles into the race, you get some rolling hills a little in it right before bar camp, and you get a lot. That's the time to recover a little, make up some time, and then after that it's purely uphill, it seems like, the rest of the way. And up to the A-frame, it's not too bad. And then once you hit the A-frame, you hit the tree line here, and you start hearing the people up here, the announcer, and adrenaline starts pumping again. And then when you just the last few quarter mile or so, it's just great. The adrenaline's pumping so much you don't feel anything.
Does that help you a lot? The people along the trail, the volunteers and stuff, do they help you out?
Tremendous. They're so great, you know. They're always cheering you on, come on, help. They take their time and help you out. It's great. They really help a lot.
Tell us what it feels like when you cross the finish line. Are you dead?
I felt good coming across. I had a little kick, actually. You know, I feel relieved. You know, it's a great accomplishment. I'm excited. You know, the pain kind of goes away for a while. You know, it'll hit me in probably about 15, 20 minutes. My legs will just collapse. But
the largest group of runners from a state outside of Colorado call Arkansas home. Our Mark Austin spoke with some of the Hogs.
Why do you think 208 people from Arkansas came out this year, and the number seems to be increasing every year? More and more people from Arkansas come out. Why?
Arkansas Pikes Peak Society, they have a good group going and a lot of interest, and can simulate a lot of trail runs, some great runs through the woods and around Pinnacle Mountain, and they do a good job. A lot of interest in it.
Well, Ron, another person from Arkansas, part of that group of 208, I take it. Why, is this your first time?
Yes.
Why do you think that number keeps increasing? How did they get you to come out here with them?
Well, the Pikes Peak Society are some great salesmen. A friend of mine is in the Pikes Peak Society and talked me into it. They just come back from here to Arkansas with tales of how much fun they had, how great the race is. It's a good group. It's a social thing.
Another large contingent on the mountain each year is a group of women known as the Peak Busters.
Well, in 1975, Annabelle Marsh and Kay Atkinson came to Pikes Peak with Walter Stack, who's well known. Walter's in his 80s now and can't come back. On their way home to San Francisco, Walter and Annabelle and Kay said, let's form a club. Let's encourage women to come to Pikes Peak. They formed Peak Busters. So they came up, they stayed at a cabin up here, and they had a party in their cabin. Peak Busters are from all over the United States and Canada, and so they run all over. But this is our only big event we put on is up here. I expect to see over 120 Peak Busters in the Ascent and the round trip.
The altitude of this race affects everybody differently. Many people need to sit down and catch their breath before continuing on their way towards the summit. Some even took the time to speak with us before moving on.
I just came out from Illinois. They say it's equivalent to a flatland marathon, but I don't know too many flatland marathons that could rival this. This is unbelievable. This takes everything you got and more. You read about it, you prepare for it, and you think you've got a grasp of what to expect, and then you encounter it, and it's just, it's mind-boggling. And everybody ought to do it once and then the hell with it.
Was it fun?
Yeah. I don't know if you can describe what we're doing as fun, but it certainly is something that probably better for having done it. I mean, it's a challenge, and obviously anytime you can bring yourself to meet a challenge, and a challenge to this extent. I mean, next time I want to see Pikes Peak is from about 33,000 feet.
Yeah, I did this last year too, and had the same problem once I got up above altitude. So, and then about 2 months afterwards, I think all the badness leaves, and I think I'll do it again next year. And then I get on the run and wonder what I'm doing up here, you know?
Would you recommend it for someone else?
That's insane. I mean, you know, it's a challenge, but you gotta be kind of half nuts to do the thing. So, there's some insane people out there, sure.
Great.
It's fun. Beautiful scenery on the way up here. It's just gorgeous. Awesome. It's just, there's been a few problems down there, but they're doing pretty good now. They got people that all along the way taking care of them, and just send word and they're down there right away.
So the volunteers are doing a good job?
They're doing an excellent job.
Yeah.
Doing an excellent job.
Yeah.
Speaking of volunteers, more than 500 are needed to assist with this race. Finish line coordinator Lynn Hale talks with us about her area.
I have to get at least 50 volunteers to help with both finish lines, the Ascent and the Marathon, and train them all to do exactly what I say.
And what's that?
Some of them have to pull the runner's tags off. Others have to spike the tags, put them on a spike so that they stay in order, so we don't screw up the results. Some of them have to do manual select time, which is you write, two people have to do that at the same time. You write down the runner's number and their time. You get their time from a stopwatch. We do the chronomix, which is the official results clock that prints out the times for each runner. We have 3 people doing that. So, and then other volunteers will assist runners as they come across the finish line, get them out of the way of the other runners. And we need about 50 people to do all that. It's great fun. It's great fun. We meet a lot of new people, and we're all runners usually that volunteer, and it's just a lot of fun.
Here's a look at the top 5 finishers in the 1993 Pikes Peak Ascent. You saw the top 3 on the men's side. Dominic Wizomirski of Fort Collins, Colorado, came in 4th, with Rob Aries of Norwood, Colorado, in 5th. For the women, there's J'ne Day-Lucore again, the winner at 2:43.51. In 3rd place, Virginia Egger of Telluride, Colorado. Susie Larson of Lincoln, Nebraska, came in 4th, and Sharon McDowell out of Colorado Springs was 5th. Ascent champion Scott Elliott shares with us some of the many reasons why people run this race.
Well, it's a personal achievement. I mean, some people do this to battle alcoholism and say that they can do anything. Other people do it to quit smoking. That's how this race began. Other people do it just because they live down in the Springs and they can look at the mountain the next day and every day when they wake up and say, yeah, I did that. Some people want to do it because they want to conquer the mountain. Some people want to do it because they have a fear or a personal battle that they want to overcome. Other people do it because they just love the mountain and they enjoy getting to the top.
KRDO's coverage of the Pikes Peak Ascent and Marathon will continue after these messages.
Sunday's marathon runners would have a bit of weather to deal with. Although the view from Pikes Peak is a beautiful one, conditions at the top on Sunday were not. 15-degree temperatures and a breeze big enough to make it felt awaited. Over 750 competitors took part in the marathon this year, and we asked them why they felt the need to make the round trip as opposed to just making the ascent up the mountain.
I guess it's the challenge. We like longer distances and a little more of a challenge of the race, and so we just decided to do the round trip.
Well, if we're going to come this far from Arkansas, we felt like to get our money's worth, we needed to do the round trip.
I guess it's a challenge. It's something that I've always wanted to do. I've run an ultra already, and it's just a challenge. You know, I'm curious to see if I can do it or not.
Are you worried about each separate place up on this mountain?
Sure. I'm worried about the start.
Because I'm an idiot.
What makes you an idiot?
I don't know. Old age, and I just want to go up there and do it. A year ago, I laid in the bath and I read an American running magazine, and there was a 4-page spread in there about all these lunatics from Arkansas that travel on the bus for 18 hours, and so I thought, well, if they're mad enough, well, I'm as good as they are, so I come out and join them.
I'm scared to death, but I'm excited too. I don't know.
But is he making you do this?
Oh no, I'm the one that wanted to come do it. I stood on top of the mountain last year and waited for him, and I got so excited. I said, I got to come do this next year. So.
Okay. That's it.
Last year, after I finished, I laid on a park bench over here and told her to take me out behind the barn and shoot me if I wanted to do this again. 3 months later, she said, we're going to do that next year, and we sent in our entries before January 1.
Really?
So we've been preparing since January.
You didn't shoot him?
No, oh no.
I may wish she would have.
Competitors again took plenty of time to warm up for this year's race, stretching out those muscles for the long haul both up and down the mountain. Even two-time winner Matt Carpenter showed up early, perhaps showing us that he had some good intentions for this race. A final check of the racing numbers, and we're off. Right from the start, Matt Carpenter took off. The two-time winner had 2 goals for this race: set a record to the top and a record for the round trip. The same goal had gotten him into trouble last year when he burned himself out on the way up to the top of the mountain and could not stop Ricardo Mejia from passing him on the way down. But this year, Matt trained a little harder, and he practically dared anyone to run with him. 2 runners from Mexico, 92 champion Ricardo Mejia in the red, and fellow countryman Zenobio Torres followed suit. But the only man Matt Carpenter was worried about was himself. He set a strict pace for this race and kept to it, and he looked very strong as he passed the Cog Railway and headed up to the trailhead. Mejia was a strong second place at this point, with Torres falling back. But the toughest part of the course was still ahead, and the person with the most experience on this mountain was in the lead. The trailhead is, of course, the portion of this race where first-time runners find out exactly what they're in for. The pavement turns to gravel, and the hill becomes a mountain. smaller, quicker steps are what's needed to get one up the mountain the fastest, and most experienced runners know that. Runners like Matt Carpenter, who still had just a small lead over Ricardo Mejia as they came through the switchbacks. It is at this point that most competitors start to take it a little bit easier, stopping from that nice choppy run to a jog, or maybe even a walk. Watching some of these folks really gives you an appreciation for what runners like Carpenter and Mejia do each year when they attack the peak. The trail continues to take a tougher and tougher toll on the body the further you go up the mountain. Where conditions were overcast on Saturday, Sunday's weather was very clear, but very cool on top of the mountain. Our summit camera was able to pick up Matt Carpenter way down below the cirque. But Carpenter was doing very well. Matt spent a few weeks this summer in Switzerland training for this race and actually ran 2 mountain races over there. Carpenter was checking his split times on the way up, and as a matter of fact ran 13-minute miles on his way towards the summit. He checked at the cirque and found that he was running a sub-2-hour ascent time. He would slow down just a little. Volunteers along the course have grown used to seeing Matt as the first man up, and they have no problems cheering him on. For Matt, it would be lonely the rest of the way up the mountain. Ricardo Mejia had fallen a good 7 minutes back at this point, and Matt was on his own. But Pikes Peak has become sort of a friend to Carpenter. He spent several months on the mountain in training this year and even spent the night a couple of nights. He remembers how poorly he felt last year, and this year wanted to run within himself. Ricardo Mejia would come through the cirque some 12 minutes behind our leader, and he was paying for the much cooler temperatures towards the top of the mountain. Wearing just a singlet, Mejia was unprepared. Meanwhile, at the 16 Golden Stairs, Matt Carpenter was showing our cameras just how strong he was. Using a seemingly effortless stride, Carpenter continued to go towards the summit in a relatively easy fashion. His goal was to get to the top and turn around as quickly as possible. When we come back, we'll follow Matt's ascent into the very cold temperatures on top of the mountain, his quick turnaround, and his incredibly fast finish.
KRDO's coverage of the Pikes Peak Ascent and Marathon will continue after these messages.
Slight winds kicked up as the day moved along on the summit. Volunteers and spectators were in need of heavy winter gear. Matt Carpenter, the more experienced of runners, came well prepared with a long-sleeved t-shirt. He cruised into the halfway point and did not want to stay very long, grabbing his number and making sure they could get it as quickly as possible so that he could be on his way. If you think 13-minute miles to the top of a mountain are quick, try 5-minute and 50-second miles on the way down. It may sound easy because you're running downhill, but look at the rocky terrain Matt Carpenter is doing it on. He continued to build his lead, moving down through the 16 Golden Stairs before Mejia even got there. Carpenter, of course, wearing the gloves to help him with his balance, holding himself up against rocks on the way down the treacherous course. He had to be pleased in knowing that his lead was this large over last year's champion. As a matter of fact, Carpenter wouldn't see Mejia until further down the trail. Mejia maybe even didn't see Carpenter as he passed by in a flash. The man from Mexico looked very strong as he came through the 16 golden stairs, but as he would tell us later, the lack of a long-sleeved shirt or any kind of material to keep him a little bit warmer would slow him down. He did not want to push himself into cool temperatures. Being from Mexico, he isn't exactly used to running in 15-degree weather. Last year's conditions weren't quite as cool, and Mejia actually made up time on Carpenter on his way up. But now he would have to push very, very hard to even have a chance. Although he looks fairly strong, you could see the final rocks taking their toll on his body as he made his way to the halfway point. The cheering crowd at the top of the peak had to make Mejia feel good. His time did not. He was 15 minutes behind Carpenter at this point and would take even more time in making sure he was ready for the descent. After calling for sufficient liquid nourishment, Mejia took his time in downing it and then made his way down the mountain. Last year, he made up plenty of time on Carpenter on the way down, but 15 minutes this year and the cool temperatures would prove to be too much. The people along the trail would prove to be a benefit to our man from Mexico, someone offering him a shirt to keep him warmer as he descended the mountain. To the common observer, running down a mountain would seem much easier than running up. But actually, it can take just as much or even more of a toll on the body. Some experienced runners took the time to share with us some of the differences between cruising down the mountain and making your way towards the top.
The biggest difference is you use an entirely different set of muscles. I think that's why it's so much easier to come down. The go-up muscles get tired, and as soon as you turn around, they can relax a little bit, and the go-down muscles have to kick in.
I think mentally coming down is a lot more fun. You've, I think, done the hardest part, and you're halfway through, and it's all downhill from there.
Some people are really built to be downhill runners, and other people don't do well with it. So they have to figure out which category they fit in and then train based on how well they do on the downhill part.
You're jamming your joints, losing the toenails a few days after the race, sore knees, ankles, sprained ankles. I've sprained the ankle a couple times and had to hobble down.
It just beats you to death, and there's about 20 more switchbacks coming down than there are going up, or so it seems. And you're up there and you look down and you can see Manitou finally, but you know it never gets there and it never gets any closer, and it's you know, you feel like it's a death march.
Which makes the finish line seem that much more grandiose once the runners reach it. This is truly the sight you've been waiting to see. The first man to see it on Sunday would be Matt Carpenter. Matt had his two records in hand, 2:01.06 to the top and 3:16.39 for the round trip. He spoke with us afterward.
Did you go out today looking to set two records? Because that's what you did.
Yes, I did. I wanted to run really hard, but at the same time I remembered what happened last year. I went so hard getting the Ascent record that I had nothing left for the down. So when I got to bar today, I started to relax, and a strange thing happened, and I was setting PRs for all the top part, and I'm like, this is good, this is good. I stopped at the water stops this year. I took some Snickers bars with me, ate those, and in fact, on the way down, I started to have a bad spot, and I ate a Snickers bar, came right out of it, and I don't think anything could have gone any better. It was a great run today.
Did you, where did you lose Ricardo? Did you even look behind you to see where he was way up the mountain?
This year, for a change, he actually tried to come out with me, and I think he might have paid for that a little. My strategy was to push a little harder. I know he lives at a higher altitude, so he's not used to running fast, and he was breathing pretty hard pretty early. At one of the water stops, I tried to get him to go ahead, and finally I had to stop to let him go ahead, and then he was going so slow I knew something was wrong, so I just took it.
Last year you got to the top at 2:05. This year when you got to 2:02 or 2:01.06, were you scared at all that maybe you pushed it too hard again?
No, I wasn't, because when I got up there today, I wasn't fooling around. In fact, they couldn't get my tag off fast enough. I wanted out of there. I knew the quicker I got down, the more air I'd get.
Take me through the mountain. What's it like, the difference maybe between running up and running down?
Running down this year was actually pretty fun because I didn't trip, I didn't hit anybody. People were real good getting out of my way. Going up, it's just, you're constantly wondering if you're going too hard and if you're going to die. So, like they say, it's an ultimate mental battle.
Is that what keeps bringing you back year after year, the ultimate mental battle?
Yeah, I don't care what racers show up, even if somebody shows up better than me, you know. This is a test against yourself. Everybody that's out here is doing it, and everybody's testing themselves, and it's great.
Was it a little bit of a personal battle, though, between you and Ricardo because he beat you last year? You felt maybe you weren't at your best last year?
Well, I had some problems on the downhill last year. I don't really want to talk about it, but, you know, this year he came out, and I wanted to run him in the ground.
That's precisely what Matt had done. Mejia wouldn't finish until another 25 minutes had passed on the finishing clock. He explained afterward that he simply was not ready for conditions at the top.
Para mí muy difícil. For him, it was very, very difficult because it was very cold on the summit.
He felt like he wanted to chase Matt Carpenter if he thought it would be a better race than it was today.
It was his objective, but it didn't happen that way.
What were some of the reasons why it didn't happen that way? Just because it was cold?
The only reason he knows of is primarily it was a lot colder than what he's used to run into, and he just didn't have it in the cold like he would normally.
Was he surprised by how far Matt was ahead of him?
The biggest problem is just when he got there, it was really cold, and he knew Matt Partner was really pushing to get the record.
Okay, does this make him want to come back and maybe, I don't know, go somewhere to train in cold weather to come back and do better next time?
Claro que sí.
Don't go away. When we come back, we'll get you caught up on the women's side of the race.
KRDO's coverage of the Pikes Peak Ascent and Marathon will continue after these messages.
The women's race would be the most hotly contested of the day. Terry Minzer of Colorado Springs and Karen Gorman of Gunnison proved to show a battle all the way up and down the mountain. This is Minzer as she came through the cirque looking fairly good. The Kazoo Band from the El Paso County Search and Rescue Team, always adding a little bit of inspiration. Now, Karen Gorman was in second place as she came through the cirque, but she is a very tough mountain runner and very good at coming downhill. That would help her in her quest to win the race. Minzer ran for the first time last year, completing the round trip in 7 hours. This year, she went about it hard, picking the right training partner in Matt Carpenter. She worked on the mountain since April, and it showed as it helped her get to the top first. Gorman, on the other hand, had never run this round-trip race before, and she seemed to be looking forward to the way down the mountain. The thin and rocky trail always makes for a tougher course, as runners have to be sure to give way for people on their way down from the top of the peak. Ascent champion Scott Elliott turned out to watch the competitors on Sunday, and what he saw was Minzer making her way to the halfway point first. She, like her trainer Carpenter, didn't want to spend much time on top of the mountain. Just enough to get a drink of water and be on her way. But had she known that Gorman was mere seconds behind, she probably would have tried to take even less time. At this point, there was only about a 30-second difference between the top two competitors. It would remain that way for much of the way down the top of the mountain. Gorman showed her experience, though, passing people and making sure to make up the time as they headed down through the 16 golden stairs. Minzer appeared to take a no-look-back attitude, worrying more about the way she was running than what Gorman was doing behind her. Gorman, on the other hand, could see Minzer all the way down and was working on catching her. As they got closer to the cirque, the ladies drew closer and closer together, and the people on the mountain knew they were witnessing a very competitive race. As they passed through the cirque, Gorman had cut the lead to a mere 6 seconds. She would pour it on as they head down the slope. It was at this point that Gorman's mountain running experience took over. She could see her goal, and she knew exactly what she had to do in order to overtake the lead. By the time the ladies had made their way through bar camp and hit the switchbacks, Gorman had the lead and was building on it. Some 5 minutes would pass by before Minzer would make her way through the switchbacks. Gorman would not be caught. She cruised the rest of the way towards the finish line and looked very strong coming in. As a matter of fact, she told us afterwards that the entire round trip wasn't as hard as she thought it might have been.
Well, I used to live in Pueblo, and my husband's run the Ascent and the marathon, and just a lot of encouragement, a lot of support from my friends, just wanting me to go do it.
Is this the first time you run the mountain?
Yeah, the first time I've run this race.
Okay. Tell me, what was it everything that you had expected it to be?
Well, this sounds horrible, but I thought it would be harder.
Really?
Yeah.
Why so?
Everyone had been telling me how steep it was, and looking at the elevation map on the registration and everything, I knew how much elevation it gained, and I just thought it would be harder.
So you're obviously then pleased with coming in first place?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it was kind of a surprise. I just didn't know where I'd be because it was the first time I'd done this. So.
Tell me about where you were and when you finally took the final lead on the mountain.
Well, I was 6th at bar camp, and then when I hit the top, I was right behind the front runner. She got off the top before me, but I passed her about a mile and a half down.
Did you know you'd be able to pass her on the way down?
Yeah, I'm a downhill runner. That's why I did the marathon. Yeah.
What is it about running downhill that you like so much?
Jumping over the rocks. Yeah, it's easy for me. I like to run up and down and over the rocks and jump off things. And yeah, I just enjoy it.
Okay. Did you obviously maybe didn't expect to win it, but do you expect to come back? Maybe we're going to see you here every year doing this?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Minzer was very happy with her second place finish, probably because she had cut over 2 hours off her time from the previous year.
Did you have the lead to the top of the mountain?
Yeah, from about French Creek on. I was in 3rd place to begin, and then 2nd, and then from French Creek I was in 1st.
Where did you, okay, so you passed them all at French Creek.
Uh-huh.
Okay, did you see her coming, or did you know she was behind you and was catching up to you? Tell me how she passed you.
I didn't see her until right at the very top, and I saw her gaining on me at the switchbacks at the top, and I thought I could hold it. Then somehow she caught me, and that was the end of that. But, yeah, I took a kind of a big, a head-first spill over the rocks and went down, and like right after that she passed me. But
how many times have you run the mountain?
Well, this is my 2nd time. Uh-huh.
Well, you did fairly well then, finishing 2nd your 2nd time.
Yeah, last year I did it in 7 hours. So, and so I fell in love with the mountain and the race and everything else, and I decided that this was the race I wanted to do this year. So I've just been going up there a lot.
Is there a special part of the mountain that you like to run?
I like all of it. I started running up there in March. I started running up in the snow. And as soon as the snow melted, I kept going higher and higher, and I really love Pikes Peak.
While the top contenders are already done, the struggle goes on for many competitors in the 1993 Pikes Peak Marathon.
KRDO's coverage of the Pikes Peak Ascent and Marathon will continue after these messages.
Here's a look again at the top 5 finishers on the men's side. Of course, Matt Carpenter at the top out of Colorado Springs, Colorado, with that outstanding record of 3:16:39. 3 men from Mexico would also finish in the top 5. Sheldon Larson of Boulder breaking it up at number 4 with a time of 3:51:44. For the women, Karen Gorman of Gunnison, Colorado, again to reiterate the winner, Terry Minzer in second. Vicki Ash out of Boulder, Colorado was third. Perennial contender Deborah Wagner came in fourth this year. And Katarina Straskraba of Lakewood, Colorado would get the 5th place. The Triple Crown winners for KRDO this year, once again, Matt Carpenter, who won it for the 5th year in a row, and J'ne Day-Lucore taking it as well. Now, if you're worried about your race results, here's a number you can call, 900-740-3939. We'd like to tell you there will be a charge for this call, so if you don't want to pay, don't make the call.